Years ago, one small YouTuber set out to explain why this game sucks so incredibly hard. Then life happened, and the project was scrapped. Lost to the void, and legend turned to myth. The world was quiet, and what was once a promising and potentially funny review was forgotten. Until now.
God, I wish I could do that voice for real. Anyway, hello everybody and welcome to Attention Span Zero, the only show dedicated to those of us who just can't stay focused. I'm Michael, and this video will be a tough one for me since I have to revisit this garbage. But I do it for you, because I love you. Now for those of you who know me, then you know that I'm a huge fan of the Alien franchise, so when I heard that a game based on just the Colonial Marines was in the making, I was ecstatic. Cut to a mere 6 years later, and the game was released. The anger and pain of betrayal has never stopped. Now I know what you're thinking, but Michael, this game came out 5 years ago. Why are you reviewing this now? Well, I'll tell you, person with the same exact voice as me. I wasn't a game reviewer back then, so I have to do it now. So without any further dudes, this game gets a final verdict of kill it with fire and let it burn with the likes of Dragon Ball Evolution. I seriously hate this game! So here we go. Just like Jade, I'm also a firm believer that the graphics don't make the game. However, I do feel that a game should probably represent the generation it's currently in, unless of course the goal is to look completely different, which I know this game is not trying to do. Now, one could argue that this game only came out in 2013, but keep in mind that games like The Last of Us and Grand Theft Auto 5 were also released the exact same year. But this looks like a PS2 game, and not a very good one. Now granted, this didn't have a AAA budget, but screw it. I'm gonna let my own personal feelings determine this review. This thing suffers from all the ailments of a crappy game. Horrible textures that randomly show up, and only if they want to sometimes. Stiff animations and unexpressive faces. Textures that aren't even in existence. Terrible screen tearing. The list goes on. The only praise I can give this game in terms of looks are in the environments. Every once in a while, the game will accidentally have a moment that really impressed me. You visit two very iconic locations from the second Alien movie, which are the Sulaco and Hadley's Hope on LV-426. And admittedly, both locations are very faithfully recreated and look great. Another area where it shines is in its sound design. Everything from the aliens to the weapons all sound just like they should, and whoever mixed the soundtrack for this abomination did an outstanding job. Okay, I think that's enough praise. This is such a far cry from what was promised during the developmental phase. Absolutely nothing looks like what was advertised, and yeah, if I'm being honest, is a big deal. Look at this! Or even this! See what I mean? Here's something that really ticks me off, and it's a graphical thing, so I'm including it. I'm not sure if they were trying to emulate real world where someone could potentially use the wrong "your," but for a grammar Nazi like me, this bothers me since this is supposed to be a professional medium. I know it's nitpicky, but this game is crooks, and it deserves it. In the game, you play as Corporal Christopher Winter, a character we know nothing about. You're part of a platoon who was sent to LV-426 to try to figure out why the Sulaco wound up back there, since it was last reported to be in orbit over Fiorina or Fury 161, the planet from Alien 3. And if you're confused about this, don't worry, the game is too.
Sir, the Sulaco was reported last seen over Fury 161. How is it back over this planet?
We don't know how that boat got back here.
Once on the Sulaco, you're swarmed with xenomorphs. You find out why it's infested through the game's DLC later on, but at first, this made no sense to me. After, get this, the first mission, you're attacked by Weyland-Yutani soldiers. From here on out, it becomes Call of Halo Modern Shooter. This is something that a lot of fans, myself included, were very upset about. We get that these human threats are supposed to play a part, and they honestly wouldn't be an issue if they were just in the story at the right time. Having them show up right away completely sucks out all of the tension and suspense that should belong to the aliens. Not to mention, these soldiers show up constantly, they're everywhere. Anyway, while on the Sulaco, and throughout the rest of the game, you're accompanied by a Marine named O'Neill, a character you know nothing about. O'Neill is annoying, and stupid, and useless. Eventually you come across a female Marine named Bella, a character we know has some sort of history with O'Neill. When you find her, she immediately informs you that she woke up with a dead facehugger on her. Gee, I can't wait to not get attached to her. I mean, seriously, the way the story is crafted, it's obvious you're supposed to care about her. And when she shockingly dies, it's apparent that it's supposed to be this big dramatic ordeal, and it's supposed to be super sad. Hey, here's an idea. Maybe you should have that part be a surprise? You know, something along the lines of, I don't know, she kept it a secret from everyone because she didn't know it was a threat, so why bother telling? Or simply just have it be, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. We're Marines, the mission comes first. It's called story writing, you morons, look into it. Anyway, the Sulaco crashes on LV-426 while you and what amounts to a squad now instead of a platoon escapes in one of the Cheyenne-class dropships. Now, you're on the planet with O'Neill, Cruz, Bella, the pilot whose name I can't remember, and an android, same model as Bishop. Now, I'm gonna be 100% honest. This part of the game is amazing. This is what I wanted from Colonial Marines. This feels like Aliens. It's so awesome to be able to walk up to Hadley's Hope and go through the same doors as Hicks and Abe Hone, and walk the exact same corridors you've seen so many times before on screen. The attention to detail is commendable. There's Easter eggs everywhere, from dog tags to audio logs.
Mom, are you okay? Dad's waiting in the cafeteria.
Okay, Newt, just a second, honey. I'll call you back, Mom.
Even Newt's doll Casey makes an appearance. More of this, please. From here on out, it pretty much becomes try to survive and get off the planet, all the while finding out what Weyland-Yutani is up to. Fight the Xenos, fight a bigger Xeno, fight the humans. Oh hey look, Hicks is alive. Sure. Fight the Queen. Oh no, Cruz died. And try to set up a sequel that'll never happen. End of game, moving on. This section will be a little difficult to explain. What I mean is, I've played two different versions of the same game. The initial vanilla release, and the game it eventually became after patches. The footage you're currently seeing now is taken from the Steam version post its 4GB patch. The patch fixed things like slightly improved graphics, adding certain effects, most notably the crack on the glass seen here, and fixed a few bugs here and there. Most recently, a single letter typo in the game's code made the AI insanely stupid. This was only discovered last year, and it was discovered not by Gearbox, but by a modder who goes by James Dickinson 963. This means that Gearbox never took the time to beta test or even QC their own game. The game they were so proud of! Anyway, that means that up until a couple weeks ago, as of recording this review, the AI was insanely stupid. The aliens would, no matter what, always jump right to the center of the screen and form a single file line, allowing you to just mow them down. Additionally, no matter how many other Marines or even company soldiers were in the area, the aliens would completely ignore all of them and only attack me. We know now that this is due to the typo, but for 5 years we didn't know that. I should note that after getting all the footage for this review, I did go into the game's code and fix the typo, and yeah, the AI is insanely better. It's really a shame that we had to do Gearbox's job. It's also a shame that Randy Pitchford kept his job after its release, but I digress. Every single time you die, you're presented with this odd and annoying gray screen that lasts way too long. I'm assuming it's meant to emulate the death of your Marine in the same way you see them die in Aliens. It's just not done well. And then there's bizarre stuff like this. What's this even a reference to? Even with all the patches over the years, there's still bugs and glitches littered throughout the game. Want to see something really stupid? Watch this. So watch this. Quit. Yes. Watch what it does. Oh, what's that say? Oh, it instantly restarts the game. Sega. Now how stupid is that? I found out later on that you can fix this by simply running the game as an administrator. But come on, this is the stuff I'm talking about. This shouldn't be a thing. I shouldn't have to jump through hoops just to do the most basic of functions. Thankfully though, after the initial release, all of the game-breaking bugs were taken care of, and yeah, there were some. I remember during my first playthrough, after I killed the Crusher Xeno, the game failed to trigger the progression, so I had to restart that section and do it all over again. Annoying. So what do I really think about Aliens Colonial Marines? Is it really the worst game I've ever played? I don't think so. Don't get me wrong, it's a bad game. It's far from anything amazing, but in a strange twist, I think it's aged surprisingly well. That could be due to the numerous updates and patches it's received over the years, but honestly I think it's more than that. I've openly hated this game for the past 5 years, and rightfully so. Whether or not it's true that Gearbox used the money Sega gave them to make Borderlands 2, we did absolutely get the bait and switch. This game was based entirely on lies. The fact that literally everything that was shown or promised to us didn't make it in the final product is inexcusable. Even the demo that Gearbox allowed the public to play in controlled circumstances was a lie. Jade got to play it and he can attest to that. This type of business practice, the bait and switch, happens way more often than it should, and it's deplorable. All the negative backlash, all the hate, and the lawsuits that Gearbox received for this was completely warranted. But at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is the end product, the final result. Pushing everything else aside, what did we really end up getting? The short answer is, we got a poorly made first-person shooter set in the Alien franchise. I know that I started off this review completely different, but I'll admit, I'm glad that I gave this game a second chance to review it. Since I didn't have all this built-up hype and I knew exactly what to expect, I surprisingly enjoyed it way more than I initially did the first time around. I was so blinded by hate and disappointment the first time that I honestly didn't pay that much attention to what the characters were saying or to what the plot really was, and that's my own fault. This is a classic example of letting hype and emotion get the better of us. And so, for the first time in ASO history, I'm gonna change my final verdict and give it a meh. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but if you've never played it before, give it a try. I'm not saying I like it, I'm just saying I get it now. Take something crappy, and with enough time, patches, and polishing, you might end up with something mediocre. Now, if we could only patch The Last Jedi, nothing much more to say here except for, this is Michael, last survivor of Aliens Colonial Marines, signing off. Yeah.